This right here is the hardest hitting, farthest pit pushing class and build in the game. I made the switch yesterday to try the Quill Overpower build. I put my own little version together, so it might be a little different than what everybody's used to seeing, but I wanted to show it off. All of my builds are always on my Mobalytics page and my YouTube page, so make sure you swing over to Mobalytics, check out the builds there. It is crazy what this build is doing. We're going to start this off with a tier 110 in the pits. We had plenty of time to clear this in, so we got way more out of this build. I haven't even got it really masterworked yet. I'm still working on getting some gear together, so it is just up from here. Check out the run. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I didn't even swap out my Merc. $320 million. See you there behind me. Elite. Ooh, that was big. Raiden! Okay, I'm pushing the pits, so if I miss something, I will catch up to you guys in a second. We are actually feeling pretty good now. It's amazing what having the proper gear on feels like. Like, these elites are just melting. See that right underneath my feet? You know what that was? That was Season 2's worst nightmare. What are they called again? Arsonists? Yeah, they were the arsonists. In Season 2, it was almost a guaranteed death when you found arsonists. It was so scary. Okay, I think we're cooking. I think this feels good. Things are dying incredibly fast. Arsonist under my feet. So scary. PTSD. Like, look at that. Those elites just, like, melt. Oh, won't do it. Things are gonna go really well until I find an arsonist, and then it's gonna blow me up. Big bada boom, baby. Then I'm dead. Good element style. I'm not old, you're old. Whew. And I stepped out and I stepped back in. And things just died. I don't understand what it is. No. Once you get an endgame build running, you drop basic skills. But technically I am using a basic skill, but I'm not using a basic skill. At 600 billion. Still not trillions. I'm looking for trillions. I want my trillions. Where are they? No, I have the numbers turned off for crit and overpower. I'll turn them back on in a second when I get to safe place. Wait, you're in the hospital dying? Is that what you said? You can't tell me something like that when I'm pushing the pits. What was wrong with you? What's that scroll? Or shrine? 400 billion? Oh, this is it right here. This is... If I can... Oh my god, did I kill everything in here? Hey, thank you for the follow, madam. Thank you. This could be my trillions. If I can find an elite right here. No, everything's dead. Oh. I mean, it wouldn't count because I'm using a shrine. But this shrine makes your damage go like through the roof. Through the roof. I'm sorry, that really sucks. Wow. Oh my god, do I have to go down a floor? Oh. It's good, should have opened. I'm gonna kill one pack. More snakes. Double snakes. You know how many times I get double snakes? Why do snakes haunt me? Snakes. Somebody pop it. I looked away for 1 second again. Oh my god. Jeez. Who was supposed to remind me that I need to not look away? That's somebody's job to do.
Be snakes.
Whatever that was. Snakes. What? Oh my god, and she's tanky too. She be tanky right here. Okay, so this is all really going to depend on the echoes. Okay. You guys see something big. Flip that. I'm not. Oh my god, I got hit by it. Oh my goodness. I got hit by that one too. It's fine. It's fine. You're fine. We're all fine. Lilith is gonna be what? What's Lilith gonna be? Which one? Which one? Which echo? Nope, dead. Boom. Boom goes the dynamite. I'm sorry. Exactly. Exactly, Lily. Yes. Oh my god, the snakes. But we did it. Yeah, no, really. She really does. She's got a big life. Big life. Down, yeah. That's not bad. Pretty insane, isn't it? Now, as I get further into this build, I'm going to make sure I keep the planners updated, so follow along on the planners. There are a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that we touch on before you hop into this build. If you do not have minimum 250 vigor, then this build will not run because you cannot hit your guaranteed overpowers. There's a couple pieces of gear you can get from gambling at the Opal vendors. If you guys want to learn what to do at level 60 to get builds set up, or even just start endgame content, I have a video in the description of this video. It is a step-by-step walkthrough of what you do when you hit level 60, all of the endgame content, what drops where, the best way to get yourself set up for tier 4. The gear that you're going to need is you're going to need the Rod of Kepaleka, you're going to need the Ring of Midnight Sun, the Banished Lord's Talisman, and the Harmony of Ebawaka. Those are the 4 pieces of gear that you need minimum to make this build run. All of the rest of it is just regular legendary gear. There's no mythic uniques required for this build. You can put them on, but it actually doesn't need them, and you're going to hurt your damage if you do end up putting them on. If you feel too squishy and you want to, you can do something like the Harlequin's Crest or the Tyrael's Might. It is up to you, but it is going to take away from how awesome this build really is. Now, this build is an endgame build, so make sure before you swap to this, you know how to play it. Don't run straight into tier 4. The reason that I say this, I'm running under armor cap, and I'm also running under resistance cap. Now, I've cleared all the way through 110 in the pits. I've got to the bosses at 115. It's very tanky just running like this. So if you throw something like Tyrael's Might on, you're basically unkillable. So if that's what you want to do, absolutely go for it. But the build version that we're going to cover right now is going to be a glass cannon build. All right, so let's take a look at the skill tree. You're going to put in your 2 points just to get yourself unlocked here. We're going to go 1 point into Vigorous. We're going to get 3 points into Balance Exertion. This is going to give our core skills 15% increased damage. Our core skills are actually going to cost 0 vigor, so we don't need to worry about the increased cost here, and I'll cover why they're going to cost 0 vigor later on. We're going to do 5 points into Quill Volley. This is going to be our main source of damage. We're going to go all the way down through Advantageous Quill Volley. Quill Volley hurls 3 additional feathers that deal 10% increased damage per each enemy hit. So if they hit a ton of enemies, then you're going to do a ton of extra damage. This is currently uncapped on how high up it goes, which is why Quill Volley is hitting so hard when you have huge groups of monsters around. Quill Volley also is going to be your source of vulnerable damage, so it's going to be awesome. This, you literally just hold down the Quill Volley button and spam it. Coming down, we're going to go into Follow Through. This right here is going to be 6% increased damage to your basic skills, and it's going to double on the 3rd cast. Now, we're always going to have a 3rd cast, and we're going to be using basic skills, but core skills at the same time, and we'll go over it. It's pretty fun. We're going to do 1 point into Vortex, and then we're going to go right down into Enhanced Vortex here. Vortex is going to do a pull, so that's going to pull everything in towards you, which is incredibly helpful when you're running in the pits, and we're also going to be fearing things away. So having a pull that pulls everything back to you is very, very, very helpful. Great quality of life. And then we're going to do Enhanced Vortex. Casting Vortex increases the damage of the next skill you cast, which will, most of the time, be your Quill Volley. So you're going to use Vortex, Quill Volley, and it's going to give you a 20x multiplier on that. We're going to do 1 point into Mirage so that we can do 3 points into Unrestrained Power. This is going to give you 12x multiplicative increased damage while you're unstoppable, and you are going to be unstoppable literally 100% of the time, and I'll show you why later on. We're going to do 1 point into Focal Point, and then we're going to do 3 points into Apex. You're going to get 9% increased vulnerable damage, and then you're going to double that bonus versus Elites, so it's up to 18% increased damage there. Now, these are very, very cool skills. The way that these skills work, these are called incarnate skills. They have a passive, and then they also have an active. The passive for this one gives you minimum ferocity is increased by 2. So that means that you have that all of the time. It's just passively on there. But then you can also activate the skill by clicking it on your bar. And when you activate it, you unleash a Savage Roar, causing each of your attacks to trigger an additional damage strike for an enemy for 6 seconds. So when you use this skill, you get something else additionally on top of that passive. We're going to go 1 point into Enhanced Ravage, and then we're going to go 1 point into Measured Ravage. While Ravage is active, your core skills will instantly dash to your target, and all of the vigor generation is going to be increased by 30%. Now, when you are playing this build, if you watch the clear, you're going to see me bouncing back and forth to all the monsters. That is because of this skill. It is so much fun to do. Coming down, we're going to go 1 point into Endurance so we can get 3 points into Preservance. This is going to give our Resolve some additional damage reduction. We're going to have a lot of stacks of Resolve, so this is going to be big. We're going to do Armored Hide. We're going to go all the way down through Reinforced Armored Hide. What this is going to do for us, this is going to give us, when we activate it, 100% increased block, and then it's also going to give us Unstoppable. Now, Way this build is set up, we have 100% block all of the time, and then we also have unstoppable all of the time. The most important part about activating this is that when you activate it, you're going to get 20% increased damage reduction. So that damage reduction is definitely going to help. So you're going to want to spam this as much as you possibly can. We're going to go into counterattack, and then we're going to go all the way down through reinforced counterattack. This was something I got asked about in one of the videos that I made. This is a passive increase to your critical strike damage, and it is a lot. When you have 5 enemies or more next to you, you're going to get 30% increased critical strike damage. You can actually see it on the stat line, and I'll show you guys when we get to the gameplay loop what it looks like, but you can see this working passively without even activating it. You don't even need to have it on your bar for it to work for you. So what counterattack does when you activate it, you're going to dodge all the direct attacks for the next 3 seconds per cast. That means that anything that is going to directly hit you. So if somebody swings at you and taps you and gives you a little boop on the head, you're going to dodge that. If there is an explosion that is right next to you that goes off, then you're still going to get hit and you cannot dodge that. We're going to go into Scourge. We're going to go all the way down through Adaptable Scourge. This is pretty cool here. What this does is that it's going to fear and slow enemies around. So the fear, even though it pushes people away from you, they're all slowed. So they don't move very fast. So Vortex will give you enough time to pull them back in. The cool thing about this is it gives you up to a 50x multiplicative damage number against crowd control enemies, which is huge. You have to spam this in order to keep that up, but you're going to be able to spam it with the way that this build is set up. You're also going to be gaining lifesteal. Now, what lifesteal does, and what the reason that this build is so tanky, is lifesteal is not life per hit. This is based on the damage that you're doing. We are doing trillions of damage. So this is going to take 35% of that damage and convert it to 35% life, which means that 100% of the time that this procs on a lucky hit, we're going to get 3,786 life back every single time that this procs on a lucky hit chance. It is a massive source of healing because we attack so fast that we heal constantly right back to full. We're going to go 1 point into Patient Guard so that we can unlock Auspicious. Auspicious, this is going to give us a passive barrier as we go and when we're running in between monsters. Taking damage is going to prevent additional accumulation for 5 seconds. So the only time that this really takes effect is when we're running either at the start of the pit or when you're running between packs of monsters inside the pit. Now, this is going to be increased by the massive amount of barrier generation that we're going to be running with this build. We'll cover that when we get to the gear, but that is an incredibly important part of this build. We're going to do 3 points into Resilient. This is going to give us 15% increased maximum life every time that we use a Gorilla skill. We're going to be using a Gorilla skill every single time that we cast. Even though we're using an Eagle skill, more on that. We're going to do 3 points into Dominant. Gorilla skills deal 15% increased damage to knock down enemies. The first hit, and this is actually fun because you see it working quite a bit, has a 5% chance to execute non-bosses. Sometimes you'll walk up to an elite, you see it, a little boop on the nose, and it's gone. Just vanishes. It is awesome to watch. We're going to do 2 points into Brilliance. This is just going to give us a little bit of extra movement speed as we move through the pits. Those 2 points right there, depending on what you want to do, if you want to take those out, and then you wanted to go into something like Diminishment here, this will give you some more DR, but is definitely not necessary. If you're feeling squishy though, your gear's not in the right spot, you can throw it right in there. It's a great option for you. But for now, we're going to go 2 points there. We're going to max out Potent. Hitting an enemy with your Jaguar skills increases the damage they take from you by up to 30% multiplicative. Now we're using an Eagle skill, but we got to hit with Gorilla skills, and then we're got to hit with Jaguar skills. It is going to be a lot, but we're going to bring it all together with the gear. We have Furnace. We're going to do 3 points into this. That's going to give you 15% increased critical strike damage per stack of Ferocity. Because of our ultimate, we're going to have Ferocity up all of the time. Let's talk about that ultimate right now. We're going to be taking the Hunter. What this is going to do, when we go all the way down through Exalted, we're going to overfill our Ferocity by 4 stacks. We're going to deal 100% increased multiplicative damage to injured enemies. And injured enemies is anybody that is below 35% life. And then this is going to be another source of movement speed because every time we activate it, we just dash all over the place. To help buff our ultimate, we're going to do 3 points into Resolution. This is going to give us 15% increased multiplicative damage to elites. And we're going to double this if we're only fighting one enemy. So bosses in the pits are a really great source of that. We're going to go 3 points into Spiritual Attunement. As I said in the very beginning, you need to be at least 250 Vigor. So this is going to give you 30 additional Vigor. And then we're going to do 3 points into Supremacy. Any enemy you kill while an ultimate skill is active grants you a stack of Supremacy, each increasing your damage by up to 30% increased multiplicative damage. When the ultimate skill ends, you're going to gain 5 stacks of Supremacy, but you're going to lose 1 every single second. For the key passive down here, we're going to be taking Prodigy's Tempo. Every third consecutive cast of the same basic skill, which we're only going to be using 1 basic skill, increases all of the purchased skills ranks by 2. So that means that anything that you have purchased is going to be increased by 2. Every third consecutive cast of the same core skill or potency skill reduces the skill's active cooldowns by 10%, and that's increased by the ranks of their skill. We are going to only be casting 1 basic skill and 1 core skill at the same time. Our cooldowns are going to reset so quickly that your poor fingers are going to feel it. They're going to be spamming keys like crazy. That's skill tree. Let's hop into the Paragon board. Now, when we build Paragon boards this season and you follow along with a planner, make sure that you don't hop into a planner that has all 300 points spent, and then you just start following exactly how those are spent. Because if you only have 200 points, you will get to about your 3rd and a half board, so you won't be able to take advantage of all of the glyphs in the legendary nodes. When you go through and you build your board, start with every single glyph, and then every single legendary node that you can, activate all 5 of those, because you can only have 5 boards. Then you fill out the rest of it, because that is the only way that you're going to build a character that will be able to progress quickly, instead of having to just grind through this Paragon board grind and wait until you get enough points to unlock the 300 on the final board. The way that glyphs work this season, you're going to have legendary glyphs along with your regular glyphs. The regular glyphs will convert to legendary at level 46. You get a guaranteed multiplicative increase to your damage when they upgrade to a legendary. So how this works, we're going to gain up to 15% increased critical strike damage, and then we're also going to get 12% increased damage to elites. In the next board, we're going to be running Sapping. When you cast 3 Gorilla, Eagle, Jaguar, or Centipede skills with the same spirit in a row, you're going to restore 15% of your vigor, and then you're going to deal 30% increased multiplicative damage. Inside of that board, we're going to be running Menagerist. What this is going to do is going to increase all of the magic nodes within the board. The reason we did this is because inside of this board, you have rare nodes that have resource. We have to get to 250 minimum. This is how you're going to get there. It is a big source of maximum resources. This also gives us dealing damage with Jaguar, Gorilla, Eagle, or Centipede skills increase the damage you deal by 4%, stacking once per spirit. So this gives us up to 12% increased multiplicative damage. And then our Incarnate skills are going to deal additional damage here. In the next board, we're going to be running Convergence. You deal bonus damage equal to 20% of your 2 highest damage types combined, up to 30%. So this is really going to give us a 30% increased multiplicative damage here. In this board, we're going to be running Talent. Your Eagle skills are going to give you 15% increased critical strike damage, and then we're going to get increased lightning damage as a multiplicative number from the legendary board here. Moving down, we're going to be going into Vicious Shield. This is a huge source of damage. This is up to 33% increased damage here. 1% increased damage per 3% of your life as a barrier. So as you gain barrier, we're going to have a maximum barrier with this build. 100% of the time, you're going to have your barrier at full. In that board, we're going to be running Canny. Your non-physical damage increases all non-physical damage enemies take from you by up to 10%. We're also going to deal increased multiplicative non-physical damage, which is going to be your Quill Volley for this. We're going to go into our final board. This is going to be Revealing. Up to a 30% chance to knock down vulnerable enemies. You deal 30% increased damage to crowd control enemies. This right here is what ties into your skills. We're going to be knocking down enemies now with this. When we go back into your skills, and you come up to here, you're going to deal 15% increased damage to knock down enemies. So what's fun about this build is that you have all of that extra layer of just this skill helps this skill. So that's where we're going to be playing in with our Paragon board here. So inside of the Revealing board, we're going to be running Colossal. You're going to deal 2% increased damage per each stack of Resolve, and we're going to stack a ton of Resolve with this build. We're also going to get an increased multiplicative damage to close enemies here. We're going to hop into the gear, and we're going to tie the rest of this together. For the gear, we're going to start with the Helmet of Ebawaka. According to your secondary Spirithall choice, your skills are additionally going to be Jaguar, Eagle, Gorilla, or Centipede skills. That means that we can have up to 3 different types on our skills now. So it's an Eagle, Jaguar, and a Gorilla skill, and that's through the Spirithall. I'll cover the Spirithall later, how it works. We're also going to deal up to 30% increased damage per spirit type they have. That means that we're going to do 90% increased multiplicative damage based on the 3 different types of skills that we have with this. For the chest piece, we're going to be running Interdiction. You're going to gain up to 15% block chance per resolve stack. This is my resolve stacks. I have 21. So we are going to be way over block cap. Now, block cap is 100%. You cannot go any higher than that. And block also does not reduce your damage by 100%. You're not going to be blocking everything. But what block does, it gives you damage reduction here. So when you block, you get additional 20% increased damage. Now, this goes up a little bit as we take our skills. We'll get to why this is important later on in the gear, but we need to be running 100% block chance all of the time. For the affixes, we're going to be running Dexterity, Maximum Life, and Armor here. The tempers, we're going to be running Barrier Generation and Maximum Stacks to Resolve. Now, follow along with the planner for what you want to put your Masterworking crits in. Masterworking is a lot more challenging this season than it was last season, so until you get yourself a good farming character, just level up your gear to a good point where you can start working, and then you're going to go from there. For the gloves, we're going to be running Moonrise. What this does is that damaging an enemy with a basic skill is going to grant 4% increased attack speed for 10 seconds. When you hit 5 times, you're going to enter a Vampiric Blood Rage. When you enter that Vampiric Blood Rage, you're going to deal up to 100% increased damage, and then you're also going to get 15% movement speed. So you're fast, you attack faster, and you hit a lot harder. For the affixes, we're going to be running Max Life, Attack Speed, Quill Volley ranks. You're also going to be running Barrier Generation and then Overpower damage for your tempers. For the pants, we're going to be running Duelist. Maximum Ferocity increased by 5. For the affixes, we're going to be running Dexterity, Max Life, and then ranks to basic skills. For the tempers, we're going to be running Barrier Generation and Maximum Stacks of Resolve. For the boots, we're going to be running Binding Morass. What this does is close enemies, or those that deal indirect damage to you, are now slowed for 3 seconds. You're going to deal 20% increased multiplicative damage to slowed enemies, no matter what. You don't have to have the first part of this go off. You're just going to get that 20% increased damage. And because we're going to be running your Scourge, Scourge is always going to make things slowed. So we're going to get this in combination with this is going to slow everything. We get that 20% increased damage right there. For the affixes, we're going to be running Max Life, Armor, Movement Speed. And we're going to be running Barrier Generation and then Movement Speed as our tempers here. For the staff, we're going to be running the Rod of Kepaleka. Now, you have a couple different options here. If you're going to be running a health potion, which will give you more life, more barrier, make you a lot more tanky, then you're going to have to make sure you have a greater affix for maximum resources here. If you are going to run an elixir of resourcefulness because you feel tanky enough, and then you want to get some additional resources, you can run something like this right here, where you're running a chance to deal core skills hit twice. If you have a greater affix on both, then you are good to go, and you should be just enough to get there. How the Rod of Kepaleka works. This is actually really, really cool. Your core skills are now additionally basic skills, and they're now free to cost. So I've said earlier, we're going to cover how come they're free. This makes them free. They're going to deal 30% reduced damage, so based on the vigor cost. When cast at maximum vigor, your core skills consume all of the vigor to return to full damage. Cast at their largest size and become guaranteed critical strikes with a up to 3% increased critical strike damage bonus, and that's a multiplicative number. When you get your maximum vigor to full, you guarantee a critical strike. We're going to get our vigor to full incredibly fast. So we're going to guarantee critical strikes. They're going to do up to 3% increased critical strike damage per point of vigor that we spend. So getting more vigor is definitely an increase to our damage. It's going to consume everything. Now, that sounds bad, but we're going to get our vigor back so fast that it is completely okay. So if you look at our Quill Volley is now a core skill, a basic skill, an eagle skill, a jaguar skill, and a gorilla skill. This class is so much fun. So let's move on to the ring. We're going to be running Redirected Force right here. What this does is you're going to gain increased critical strike damage equal to 70% of your block chance. That's a multiplicative number, so it's going to be increasing. Blocking doubles this bonus. So every time that we block something, which if we have 100% block, we're going to block all the time, we're going to gain up to 140% increased critical strike damage bonus. If you look at my critical strike right now, I'm running 4,000. Now that definitely will go up by a lot as we start attacking things. And I don't stack critical strike damage at all. All of the skills that we have in play are feeding into that. For the affixes here, we're going to be running dexterity, max life, attack speed, and then for your tempers, resource generation, and overpower damage. For the other ring, this is where we get all of our vigor back. The Ring of Midnight Sun. When you critically strike, which with the Rod of Kepaleka, we critically strike 100% of the time, you regen up to 50% of the vigor that you've spent within the last 2 seconds. We spam Quill Volley very, very fast, so we're going to be spending resources very, very quickly as long as we get back to maximum vigor. So we get back to maximum vigor. If we get there twice within 2 seconds, we're going to always be generating 100% of our vigor because that's how much we spent in the last 2 seconds. For the final piece, we're going to be running the Banished Lord's Talisman. The affix on this is incredibly important, as well as the maximum life. Maximum life is going to be an increase to our barrier, an increase to overpower damage, and survivability. The affix is also going to make sure that we do a ton of overpowered damage. After you spend 275 of your primary resources, your next core skill is guaranteed to overpower. Your overpower critical strikes, which we overpower 100% of the time, deal up to 60% increased damage. So this build is a ton of fun. It is crazy to run. Let's cover all of the gems and why I have things where. The jewelry is going to change depending on what you're going to be running and how you run your build. I normally run incense, so I'm just over armor cap with the incense, so I put on some diamonds just to give myself just a little bit more of a boost because I'm running very low resistances. I could swap one of these out to hit armor cap, but then my resistances would go down. So play around with it and figure out where you want to go. In the helmet, we're going to be running the barrier generation from the amethyst. This is also going to be something you need to play around with. If you don't have enough barrier generation to get to 100% of your barrier, then you need to run amethyst in your gear. With just 2 grand amethyst, I have enough. Everybody's build is different. At first, I had amethyst here as well. I was able to hit 100% of barrier, so I took them out and I put in the dexterity gems because that's going to be my main stat for this build. Feel it up with your character with however you want to run it. For your runes, we're going to be running Pak Q. What this does is when we spend up to 300% of our maximum resource, we're going to invoke the Earthen Bulwark Druid that's going to grant us barrier. This is their biggest source of barrier, and this is going to be very, very important that we spam this as fast as we can to make sure that we get our barrier up as fast as we can. This will not give us 100% barrier unless our barrier generation is as high as it can be, which is why we have barrier generation on all of our gear and why we have barrier generation here. For your other runes, we're going to be running Yol Zal. I think that's pronounced right. What this does, casting a skill with a cooldown, which we're going to spam them, and I'll show you in the gameplay loop how it works. Casting a skill with a cooldown up to 4 times is going to give us 20% maximum life for 6 seconds. We want to generate more life for more survivability and more barrier. So this is going to be a really, really big boost to that. For your Spirithall and how this works, Spirithall has 2 options. You can select a primary and then a secondary. The primary makes your skills become that specific skill. So whatever you choose as the one on top, your skills are also going to become that. Then on the bottom, we're going to get a secondary ability, but they do not become gorilla skills. You only gain the maximum resolve increased by 2, and then when you have at least 5 stacks, you're going to be unstoppable. This is why we are unstoppable 100% of the time. I have 21 stacks of resolve. If you watch those stacks during a run, they don't drop much at all. We're unstoppable 100% of the time. The Helm of Ebawaka takes your secondary skill and then adds that to your damage type. So normally without the Helm of Ebawaka, this would only be an Eagle and a Jaguar skill, but because we're running that helmet, it's now an Eagle, a Jaguar, and a Gorilla skill. This is where your massive damage hits are coming from. This is where we're doing trillions. Every 15th time that you deal direct damage to an enemy with a Jaguar skill, unleash an additional strike, dealing 15% of the damage that you dealt to them within the last 0.5 seconds. If we've done a massive hit inside of that last 0.5 seconds on our 15th hit, this explodes for a huge, huge amount of damage. So I'm going to show you what the gameplay loop looks like. Now, the gameplay loop, or basically lack thereof gameplay loop, because really what you want to do with this build is spam everything as absolutely fast as you possibly can. So things that you're going to look for. This is our ferocity. This is going to increase as we start attacking. This will boost our ferocity. When we use our Scourge, every time we use Scourge, you see the stacking bonus on the bottom. That is our increased multiplicative damage, and that keeps on going up. This is going to be our increased damage from our vulnerable per spirit. So there's so many different things, but Blizzard actually made it so they extended the buff bar so you can see what you're working with. So as you start going, you're just going to start with your Quill Volley, and then you're just going to start spamming things as fast as you can. If you want to see huge numbers like that, the 153 billion that we just did there, you can turn off your overpower damage. This is your Jaguar skill going off. For the mercenaries, this is something that's new. For our main mercenary, we've taken Subo. We've gone all the way down through Wiretap, Ready at Hand, Cover Fire, and then down into Opening Fire. What this does is that anything that is hit by Cover Fire, we're going to get increased 25% X critical strike damage to enemies that have been hit by Cover Fire within 4 seconds. So as he uses it, we're going to get that bonus here. For the secondary, we're running Variana. Now, Variana as a support is going to give us 10% attack speed for that same duration. So the 7 seconds, we're going to get 10% attack speed. So just a little bit of an attack speed bonus. If you want to run Rahir because he gives a massive damage reduction bubble for 5 seconds, that is also a great option for survivability. I felt comfortable with the build, so this is what I'm running here for the build. That's it. That's the build. It is so much fun. I put it together literally yesterday, so you do not need the best gear in the world to get it up and running. In order to do the big trillions, you need some good gear, but it is a ton of fun. It's very, very easy. It'll allow for very easy farming this season. I'm live on YouTube and Twitch every night. Stop by, say hi, theory craft with me. Catch you on the clip side.